Come sit with me a minute. This table here is where my whole life happened. 60 years of breakfasts, homework spread across it, birthday cakes with the wrong number of candles because I always miscounted. I fed everybody who ever walked through my door at this table. But I will tell you something I have never said out loud. For all the meals I served here, there were words I should have served too. Words I kept warming on the stove for the moment that was just right. And the moment came and went, and the chair sat empty before I said them. My name is Rose. I am 78 years old. Let me start with my husband. His name was Walter, and we were married for 51 years. Now, Walter was not a talker. He showed his love the way men of his time did. He fixed the gate before I noticed it was broken. He warmed up my side of the bed in winter and slid over so I would have the warm spot. Every single morning for 51 years, he brought me a cup of coffee, 2 sugars, a little too much milk, exactly the way I never told him I had actually stopped liking somewhere around year 30. Year 30, year 25, I could not tell you exactly when the taste turned. I drank it wrong on purpose for 20 years because he made it with such care. And here is what I never did. I never once sat him down, looked him in the eye, and said, "Thank you. Thank you for the coffee and the gate and the warm spot and the 51 years." I thought it would sound strange. We were not that kind of couple. We said our love in casseroles and clean shirts and rides to the doctor. Then one Tuesday in spring, he sat down in that chair right there, the one you might be looking at, and he put his head down like he was tired, and he was gone before the ambulance turned the corner. I never got to say it. I had 51 years, and I spent them all assuming there would be one more morning. There is always supposed to be one more morning. The morning after the funeral, I came down to this kitchen and stood at the counter and reached for 2 cups out of habit before I remembered. Now I make my own coffee, 2 sugars, too much milk, the way he made it, and I drink it the wrong way on purpose, and that quiet, wrong cup is the only thank you I have left to give him. I would trade every right cup I ever wanted for the chance to say it to his face just once. Then there is my mother, and this one is heavier because we were angry at each other for a very long time. We had a falling out when I was 35. It was over something so small I am ashamed to even tell you what it was. A comment she made about how I was raising my oldest. Words sharp enough to cut on both sides. And then pride got in the way pride does, and a week of silence became a month, and a month became years. We still spoke at holidays, polite, careful, like 2 women being introduced over and over who already knew everything about each other. I kept thinking, when she apologizes, then I will soften. She was probably sitting in her own kitchen thinking the very same thing about me. 2 stubborn women, 2 cold kitchens, waiting for the other one to set the table first. She got sick when I was 50. I was 50, I remember that much. By the time I drove out to her, she barely knew the room she was in. I sat by her bed and I held her hand, that small hand that used to braid my hair, and I said, "Mama, I am sorry. I forgive you. Please forgive me." And she looked at me with such kindness, but she did not know who I was anymore. The words were finally out of me, every one I had saved for 16 years, and they landed on a woman who could no longer catch them. She patted my hand and called me by her own sister's name. I had waited for the perfect moment to make peace, and I waited so long that the moment lost its hearing. I drove home that night, and I thought about all the Sunday dinners I had set this table for, 4 chairs, 5 chairs, and never once put hers among them. There had been 16 years of empty Sundays where her chair could have been. My children taught me the next one. I have 3, and I was a good mother in all the ways you can measure with your hands. They were fed, they were clean, they were safe, they were at every practice and every recital. But there were 2 things I held back, and I am not proud of either. The first was the word proud. I was so afraid of letting them get a big head, the way my own mother feared it in me, that I kept my pride for them locked up tight. My son David made something of himself, built a good life with his own 2 hands, put 2 children through school, 2 of them, both of them through. And I would stand right there at the sink and tell every neighbor who would listen how proud I was of that boy. I told the mailman, I told the woman who does my hair, I told everyone except David. He found out at 59 how I felt, by hearing it secondhand from a woman at church who said, "Your mother never stops bragging about you." He came over the next week or the one after, and stood in that doorway with his eyes wet and asked me, "Is that true, Ma?" And I will tell you exactly what I did, because it shames me. I said, "Well, of course it is. Do not be silly." And I turned around and put the kettle on. I turned my back on my own crying son and filled a kettle. That was the closest I came. Even then, even handed the moment on a plate, I could not turn around and look at him and just say it plain. 59 years old, and the first time my boy heard his own mother was proud of him. It came to him through a stranger in a pew, and the second time it came with my back turned and a kettle running. The second word I held back was sorry. There was a night I was tired and frightened about money, and I said something cruel to my daughter Margaret, something about her weight, in front of her friends. She was 14. I saw her face fold up. And I told myself I would talk to her about it when things calmed down. Things never calm down. That girl is 52 now, and I have watched her flinch at her own reflection for 38 years. I have watched her push her plate away at this very table when she thought no one was looking. And I have never once said the words, "Margaret, I was wrong. That was my fear talking and not the truth of you. You were never anything but lovely." I am saying it now, out loud, hoping the saying of it travels somehow across town to her kitchen. And then there was Lena. Lena lived next door for 40 years. 40 years, give or take a few. She was the friend who knew where I kept my spare key and the real story behind every photo on my wall. We had a standing arrangement, Thursday afternoons, tea at this table, the good cups. And Lord, we laughed at that table. Lena had a wicked tongue on her. She could do an impression of every man on the street, the way the grocer cleared his throat before he overcharged you, the way the minister said the word blessings like it had 4 syllables. One Thursday, she got me laughing so hard about something the new pastor's wife wore to the picnic that I snorted my tea straight up my nose in front of the window where anyone could see. And we both laughed harder at that, 2 grown women cackling like girls over the good cups. I think about that more than almost anything. Not the sad parts, the snorting. When my Walter died, Lena was the one who sat with me in the dark and did not try to fix anything. She just stayed. About 6 years ago, 6 or 7 now, she got an idea to move closer to her grandchildren, 3 states away. And in all the rush of her packing, I never told her what those Thursdays had been to me, that she was the one who kept me upright. I figured she knew. People you love are supposed to just know. We meant to keep up the calls. You always mean to keep up the calls. The calls got shorter, and then they got further apart, and then one came from her daughter to tell me Lena had passed in her sleep. I sat right here at this table afterward, on a Thursday afternoon, and without even thinking, I set out the 2 good cups, the ones with the little blue flowers, and I filled the pot for 2. And then I looked at her empty chair across from me and the steam coming off a cup that nobody was going to lift, and I understood that some words have a closing time. You think the door is always open. You think you can walk back through whenever you finally find the courage. And then one ordinary day, without any warning at all, somebody quietly turns the sign around. So I have spent a lot of evenings at this table lately, looking at all the empty chairs, doing the math on every word I saved for later. It was never that I did not feel it. I felt all of it every day, a whole houseful of feeling. I just kept waiting for a calmer day, a day when it would come out smooth and not shaky, when the dishes were done and nobody was rushing and the light was just so. But that day is a liar. That day does not come. There is always one more pot on the stove, one more reason it is not quite the right time. And the people you mean to say it to keep getting older right alongside you while you wait. Here is the only thing I know for certain, sitting here in this quiet kitchen. The words do not get easier by keeping them. They get heavier. Every unsaid thank you, every unspoken sorry, every I am proud of you that you swallowed down, it does not disappear. It just moves into one of these empty chairs and waits for you. And one day you are an old woman setting out the good cups for people who cannot come to tea anymore. So do not wait for the perfect moment. There is no perfect moment. There is only the kitchen you are standing in and the person who is still close enough to hear you. Pick up the phone today, not tomorrow, today, while the line still rings on the other end. Say the thank you. Say the sorry. Say, I am proud of you. And say it to their face, not to the neighbors. You do not need the right words. You just need to start. Tell them you were thinking of them. Tell them the coffee was always perfect. Tell them you should have called sooner. It will come out clumsy. Your voice might shake. Let it shake. A clumsy thank you that gets said is worth more than the most beautiful one you carry to your own grave. Clumsy and said beats perfect and buried every single time. If something I told you tonight pressed on a sore spot, then do one thing for an old woman before you go on with your day. Pass this along to the one person you have been meaning to call. You know exactly who came to mind just now. That is not an accident. And then tell me down in the comments, what is the thing you wish you had said, and to whom? Maybe just typing it here will give you the courage to finally say it where it counts. So come back and sit at my table again soon. And please, do not let your good words go cold on the stove the way I let mine. Carry them in while the people you love are still here to taste them.